Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today we have a 2022 Jeep Gladiator, and we're going to be taking a look at, and I'm going to show you how to install the Roadmaster Direct-Connect base plate. First is going to be your base plate. That's going to be on the towed vehicle. You'll mount it typically to the frame. Then you'll have your tow bar, which is going to connect the RV to your towed vehicle. You'll have wiring, which is going to send the signals from your motorhome to the taillights on your towed vehicle so that others know what you're doing. You'll also have your safety cables, whether they're included in your tow bar or not. These are going to help in an unlikely disconnect. It'll help keep the towed vehicle attached to the motorhome. And the fifth component for flat towing the vehicle is going to be a supplemental braking system. The braking system installed on the vehicle is going to allow the vehicle to stop itself while the RV is stopping itself. Most RVs are not designed to tow things that don't have brakes, unless it's a super light load, but when you're towing something like a Gladiator, you're definitely going to need supplemental braking. Some additional components we often recommend to people is a charge line, which is going to go from the 12 volt on the motorhome to the 12 volt on your towed vehicle. This is going to allow your battery to be charged while you're driving so that when you get to your campsite or your first stop and you unhook everything, your battery's not dead in your towed vehicle. Another thing is you want your tow bar to be as level as possible, or at least within 3 inches of rise or drop. And that's when a high-low adapter, you can see here, all we have is a 2-inch drop, and that was all we needed in order to get it perfectly level. And the last thing we recommend is getting something like the Roadmaster Tow Defender. This is going to be a net that goes across and connects to your tow bar, the ends of your tow bar, so that it protects rocks from hitting the paint on your vehicle. Now, as far as the base plate goes, this is going to give you a direct connection from your motorhome to the vehicle, and it's going to, like we said earlier, attach to the frame, so it's going to have a nice strong pull point. This specific tow bar is going to have an exposed cross tube, so you have to decide whether or not you want to see the cross tube or not. We do have other kits where the cross tube is hidden, but it's going to require much more extensive trimming on your skid plate. The base plate will also include tabs to mount up your 6-pole, which makes for a really nice clean look. The tow bar, if you get a Roadmaster tow bar, will connect directly to the removable arms. There are adapters available if you have a different brand tow bar, but in order to remove the arms, you just take these out, and this is all that you'll have left on your vehicle when you're driving around town. The tow bar is also going to include safety chain loops, so you don't have to worry about mounting them anywhere else. The safety chain loop is nice and large. You can fit pretty much any of the hook styles that come with your safety chains directly into that hole. Now, as far as the installation goes, it's not too hard of an installation. It goes up actually pretty easy. You will have to remove the bumper and the skid plate, and it will require trimming on the skid plate. Now, on the Mojave that we have here, the skid plate is going to be a steel skid plate, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to cut it, but if you have a die grinder or an angle grinder, you can usually cut it out pretty good. We will show you tips and tricks on how to cut it out the best way that we found. The other thing about this base plate with the Jeep Gladiator Mojave or any of the other submodels that have the Fox suspension with the external reservoirs, this base plate is designed to fit those, so you don't have to worry about fitment. With that being said, let's go ahead and take it into the shop and show you how we got it in place. To begin our installation, we need to remove our skid plate. This is going to be 4 13mm sockets to get it removed. We are going to leave that one in so that we can hold it while we take it out. We'll set this aside for trimming later on. On the side of the frame, you're going to have this piece of tape that we're going to need to remove. We only have one on the passenger side. On the driver's side, it is already removed or it fell off at some point. Now we can take a 16mm socket and remove this bolt on each side and disconnect our wiring. Then we'll need to remove the 2 bolts holding on our stiffener. Now underneath our bumper, we're going to take our 4 nuts off of the back side of the studs that are holding our bumper beam on. So we'll have to take 4 off this side and 4 off this side with an 18mm socket. You want to leave one loosely on so that it can hold on your bumper, and we'll take that off by hand later. Last thing we need to do before we remove our bumper is to remove these 2 push pin fasteners on either side for this drip tray. You usually get a flathead screwdriver. We're going to grab a trim panel tool and pop that out. Pop out the center, and the base should come right out with it. Just like that. So we took the nut off the back side, the last one we had in place, and then we'll grab our hooks here and pull back and set our bumper to the side. Now we'll need to get a couple of our bolts ready, because the next thing we're going to do is raise our base plate up into place. So we have a lock washer, a flat washer, and we're going to put a little bit of Loctite on each of these bolts. And we can set them here, so when we lift our base plate up, they're right there and ready for us. With an extra set of hands, we could take our base plate and slide it up on either side of our frame rail. Now you'll have to line up the hole over top of our bolt here, where our shock reservoir is at. This hole here is going to go over that bolt. You may have to use a screwdriver or something to pry it over top of that hole, because this is going to need to go in here. There we go. Now we'll do the same for the other side. Now we could take that hardware that we assembled and thread it on. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to take those lower stiffeners that we removed earlier, and they're going to slide between the frame rail and our base plate bracket. You may have to, again, do a little bit of prying to get them to slide up into place, because it is going to be a tight fit. Essentially, you want to line up these holes in the base plate and the stiffener, and then we'll put that same combination of hardware in. We'll get one started here, and we should be able to pivot that down and put the other one in. Once you get the 2 on the driver's side, we'll repeat that same process on the passenger side. Now we'll want to make sure the top of our base plate is level with the top of our frame rail. You just move it back and forth with some adjustments, and then we're going to tighten this top bolt. Now we discovered when we were tightening this bolt, the washer that they give you in the kit is too small. It actually fits down inside this opening. So we went ahead and found a little bit larger washers. These are about 1 inch in diameter, so they're going to work out much better. Once we've tightened these down, we can torque them to the specifications and the instructions. Now we're going to take a series of drill bits and drill out 2 holes, one on each of our frame rails. We're eventually going to want to have a 17/32 drill bit size. That's just going to be over 1/2 inch, so you get your 1/2 inch bolts in place. Some frames are going to have a pre-drilled hole in the frame. Like we have on our driver's side, we have that pre-drilled hole there, but on our passenger side, we do not. So it's up to you. We like to step up in drill bits so that we don't burn up a drill bit, but we're going to need to drill these out. When drilling these holes, you really want to run the drill bit all the way through the frame. That way you know, because the drill bit is straight and it made both holes, your bolts are going to fit. If you try to go back and forth, you may not get the bolt to slide through all the way. With our holes all drilled out, we'll take our longer bolts that come in your kit with a big flat washer. Take the pipe spacer, slide it down in between the frame. This is just to take up that extra space in the frame here when we go to tighten it down. And on the other side, we'll want to put some red Loctite, then a flat washer, lock washer, and our nut. And we'll want to tighten and torque these to the specifications in the instructions. With these top two bolts torqued down, we can now torque down the other two on the bottom. Now we can take our bumper and slide it back in place. May take another person to help you line up the holes. And we can reinstall the hardware on our studs. Hold our skid plate up in place about where it's going to need to go. You can line up your holes, and then we're going to make a couple of marks here on our skid plate of where we need to start cutting down. We're going to use an angle grinder to cut this. We'll show you what it looks like when we're finished. Drilled a 1/2 inch hole, and then we cut about a 4-inch slit about a 1/2 inch wide to accommodate for our base plate. Then we took our factory bolt and a 13mm socket and tightened these back up. Well guys, that's going to do it for a look at installation of the Roadmaster base plate on our 2022 Jeep Gladiator.